start over. My name is Brad Grossman. You know me, the founder of Zeitguide, and this is my culture class. This is the second time we're doing our 30-minute, which means unlike the 60-minute, you can't ask any questions because we got to go through a lot. Usually I go through the 4 pillars of change: global trends, tech trends, consumer trends, workplace trends, and kind of talk about all the different dots and connect them so that you can be smarter, culturally relevant, and best prepared for the future. And the difference about right now is that we probably have one of the biggest forces that is encompassing and impacting every part of culture, which is what is now called the novel coronavirus. No surprise to any of you. I don't think there has been as much of a cultural dagger into our lives, our normal lives, since September 11th. Some may say the economy collapsed in 2008. But the fact that there's a lot of fear, a lot of unknown, a lot of anger, a lot of inequality, a lot of actual racism, unknowns, and stagnation in both our jobs, in the way we work, in the way we are creating our branding and what we're offering to our customers, the media we create, this is all being impacted, as well as us as citizens of the world. And so unlike what you're seeing on CNN and breaking news and every single break that you're getting from your newsletters, I am going to try to granulate, connect the dots, and try to provide an overarching synthesis of the things that we need to know in all areas of culture. What does it mean in terms of the global health? What does it mean for our work and how we work? What does it really mean in the politics conversation? As we know, last night was Super Tuesday 2, and Biden is driving ahead, and Bernie is still staying so he could have or be part of the debate on Sunday, which, by the way, a lot of people disagree with him, but I'll tell you why it might be interesting to have Bernie Sanders to be debating Biden on Sunday. But we'll get to that when we talk about politics, and it's all on this sheet right here. We'll talk about how the tech industry is responding and how the tech industry can change. We'll be talking about inequality and racism. We'll be talking about how consumer-facing brands are responding and what consumers are actually doing in response to this with the social media tools that we have for them. And then I'll end on like one area of positivity. One of the things I must say right now is that one of the things I've learned from the Harvard Business Review is that since many of us are working remotely, many of our lives have been completely disrupted. Many of us are on Zoom video, which, by the way, we are ahead of the curve in culture class. I hope that sounded funny and not offensive. Because my whole trend for 2020, if you read the 2020 Zeitguide, is that the world's on fire. This is pre-coronavirus. How do we move forward in this next decade? And it's all about, in the same way that technology disrupted everything, now we have to disrupt the meaning of humanity. And that is the core thing I think we all really need to think about when we're going through this crisis on a global level, in a global, multi-connected, digital technological level, which is learned in terms of Harvard Business Review, is that anytime you have a meeting with somebody virtually, or if you see them, there's 2 ways to approach it. One, you ask how people are, and you talk about the coronavirus, which could take a while and prevent you from getting anything done, which is hard anyway right now because our work lives have been disrupted. But the other way to really connect with people is to show empathy and check in with people. Like, start out every meeting with like, how is everybody doing? And maybe, how do you feel? Are you scared? What's going on? How have you been affected? Have your kids gotten, are you working from home? Are your kids going to school? How's your family? Do you have any aging parents or friends? And also, kind of just check in with each other, because this is how we're going to connect with each other going through this crisis, which is an unknown crisis. Like, September 11th, we really didn't know how it happened, but we had a finite thing that happened and we all grieved together. Right now, we're in a state of uncertainty together, and that is really weird. So just in that situation, what I'm trying to say is that as we work remotely, always check in with the people that you have a meeting with. So let's just go right into the health update. Again, I just want to remind everybody, if you want to be completely paranoid or in the know, this website that's sponsored by Johns Hopkins or created by Johns Hopkins gives you an up-to-date stats of what's happening. Here's the total confirmed by every country over here. And then here you have like the total number of deaths and actually the total number who recovered. So again, I put that all in Slack. So I want to start first with the workplace. And I wrote a piece on Sunday about how this is forcing us to disrupt the way that we work. And I've asked some pretty, I hope, thought-provoking questions to help us kind of, reboot the way that we are working. Because what I've been writing about for the last decade in the Zeitguide is that how most of my clients have complaining about burnout. And in fact, there was a study by the human resource firm Kronos that basically said like over 80% of the people who quit their jobs is basically because of burnout. And our work lives before coronavirus has been absolutely insane, right? We're always on, we're on our phones, we sleep with our phones, we're traveling all over the place, we're not balancing our lives very well. With the rise of, which is amazing, inclusion and diversity in the workplace, this is also making it more complicated in terms of how to divide, in the same way that we are equal in the workplace. How do we have equal roles at home, raising families, and spending time with our loved ones? So now that many of us knowledge workers, not people who are working in factories, are blue collar workers, which we'll talk about in a little bit, us knowledge workers who are able to work from home because we could take our brains anywhere and we could collaborate with our peers and team and customers through this mechanism. As we are home, and we're trying to make sense of how to work from home, I would suggest that we also should think about how we really want to work moving forward, because the world is moving faster and faster. All our companies and businesses and industries are getting disrupted. Many of us are leaving our jobs and trying to figure out what's next. But now we got to figure out how important the role of work is in our lives and how we're going to move forward. So now that we're not traveling, ask yourself, do you really need to travel all the time? Not only is it stressful and it's bad for our health and our skin, it's also impacting the climate because of the large carbon footprint. So are we going to change the way that we actually see our customers and our teams? Do we have to have as many meetings as we always feel like we have to? Are you taking enough time for yourself outside the office to learn and think? Do you spend so much time socializing or perhaps gossiping and politicking in the workplace? Like, think about all the stuff that you actually are wasting time doing in the workplace. Which tasks do you need to do in the office, but which ones can you do from anywhere? And then, do you spend enough time with your family now that you're living the work life and the personal life that I really want to have? And how can I think about that moving forward? And I know there's been a big trend about fewer hours, flexibility, and a 4-day work week. Is this going to be the epistemological catalyst that is going to cause us to do that in the future? And basically, with this, there's a great Harvard Business Review piece. I'm not going to go through this, but that's where I learned the check-in possibility tactic for moving forward. And I'll put it in Slack. But a video meeting, we're all going to get good at it. We're probably going to like it. One impact of this in terms of technology, a lot of people are speculating in the tech world that this is going to propel virtual reality to the future. Now, I've always thought virtual reality was all buzz and whistles, and it's great for brands. You put on something on your head, which nobody wants on their face anyway. But I always did say the future of virtual reality was about connectivity as well as connectivity as well as training, right? So like you could end for mental health and burn victims. It actually is a tool to make your life better than just being entertained. So that is one impact of this whole work at home thing that could impact the technology business and our engagement with technology. So today, the World Health Organization has basically defined the coronavirus finally as a pandemic. The CDC has said that it was a pandemic, for the last few days. CNN actually said, we're calling it a pandemic. All the press is calling it a pandemic. Who didn't call it a pandemic? It actually is the World Health Organization. And today, literally just minutes ago, they said the coronavirus is no longer an epidemic, but it's actually a pandemic. An epidemic is the spread of a disease within one area, right? It was China. And the World Health Organization said that it's still an epidemic because it's actually starting to get contained in China. But now that it's spreading all over the world, that defines what a pandemic is. So it's an epidemic that goes to all over the rest of the world. And that's why it's a pandemic, and the World Health Organization just finally said it. So in your conversations, if people use the word epidemic and pandemic, I hope I just differentiated the meaning for you. The other big buzzword that people are talking about is that it's a black swan. Black swan is a definition or a term that Nassim Taleb wrote about in his book that he wrote in the mid-2000s. And basically a black swan is something that is highly improbable and unforeseeable. And it actually just disrupts everything that you're doing. And then when you look back, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But it's unforeseeable and highly improbable, okay? Now, there are people, risk experts, there's one person named Michelle Walker, which I wrote about, saying that this is not a black swan. This is a gray rhino. I'm just going through some terminology here to make us all smarter. A gray rhino is basically something that is highly obvious, that is highly probable, but still has caused us to neglect these kind of dangers. Her exact quotes. And since the coronavirus has happened, I've heard everybody in conversations, or especially in the financial world, call it a black swan. The media is calling it. Investors are calling it. Financial market analysts are calling it the black swan. But in actuality, as Bill Gates just basically said in his blog, that we always knew that there was going to be a pandemic. We knew that something was going to creep out because it happens every century. And we know through our climate change scientists that if we disrupt the environment through urbanization or whatever, we are disrupting the ecosystem. And these kind of viruses are just going to kind of pour. That's kind of why we have a new flu every year. So the coronavirus is another virus. It just so happens to spread all over the place and be this crazy pandemic, not an epidemic. So it is not a black swan. September 11th was a black swan. Trump being elected was a black swan. We had no idea that was gonna happen. This we actually did, and it's very unfortunate that our world and our country, those of you who are from America, I know a lot of people are from other countries around the world, are not really prepared for this, and we should have been, because this was a gray rhino. So let's bump up to politics a little bit. I don't like to talk about the breaking news, but what's interesting to me is that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders had basically this one through line, which was about inequality, a through line that has three components, all about the same, which is inequality, the disparity between billionaires and the have-nots, right, and the widening gap. Although because of this coronavirus, we have fewer billionaires, especially two of them who are in the oil business. They got bumped off the billionaire list. But also, so healthcare inequality, the healthcare and inequality, and the billionaire and then the have-nots disparity. Those are the three. And if we have Biden going against Trump, I would say the narrative between the two of them is basically one who has empathy for the world, like Chuck Schumer, who's been amazing, and trying to do everything they can to contain this virus, even if it disrupts our lives in so many ways. And then you have somebody who isn't showing any empathy, is throwing the pens that he's writing to sign bills into law and throwing it out to crowds. And the only way he's really responding is focusing on the economy, which, as we know, is the primary component to why people think that he could be a good president. But I always thought that this would happen. I called it. I'm like, this guy is like a Shakespearean despot who needed his comeuppance. And I knew it would happen right before the election. But again, Biden versus Trump means the crisis management, empathetic leader versus the person who only cares about the economy, who, by the way, today invited the heads of all the banks to the White House. That's how he's dealing with the virus. Now, the thing that's interesting about Bernie Sanders, who I don't think is going to go anywhere, but even though the coronavirus is going to be the heartbeat of the election, there is still going to be a through line of inequality. Because we are knowledge workers. We should be grateful, right, of the type of, I feel like we're all in probably, mid-level to high positions in our careers and in our companies. We are, many of us are not in the gig economy. Many of us are not working on the floors of Costco. Many of us are not cleaning our office buildings. Many of us aren't working at our cafeterias serving food. And they're the true people who are the Trump supporters really, who are going to be disrupted by the coronavirus. And 28 million Americans still don't have health insurance, even though we have Obamacare. And many of them aren't going to the doctor, even though they're scared because they don't want to pay for the bill. My prognostication is that great time for CVS, which bought Aetna, and Walmart, who's creating their health hubs, to really come up and step in and really be able to be like of service to the underprivileged. So coronavirus, even though Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren spearheaded that conversation, coronavirus, I believe, is a signifier of this disparity and of the have-nots and the haves. Just a little political research. 43% of respondents approve of President Trump's response to the coronavirus, while 49% disapprove. 83% of Democrats disapprove, and 87% of Republicans approve of what Trump's doing. And 68% of Democrats said they're very or somewhat concerned about the virus, compared to just 35% of Republicans. That is actually conducted by Axios. So anyway, here's this great article I put in, is forcing employers to confront inequalities in their own ranks. I have Costco up here because Costco is an example who decided that they're not going to do any remote working. I mean, even if you're an executive and in marketing, you have to still come to work unless there's things about kids or blah, 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 because they're saying there's so many employees at Costco who cannot work from home. So they don't have the policy. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about brands and how they're responding. We talked about misinformation and how social media is really causing a lot of falseness. It's also causing people to actually get over this, in terms of fun and creating a little bit of levity, which we'll talk about. But the social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter are basically trying to find these false memes and companies touting products that they say could cure the coronavirus, like teas, essential oils, tincture, colloidal silver, etc. So we do have these tech companies trying to, they may not have done anything with false news and Russian hacking and the politics, but the coronavirus is actually, forcing them to be a little bit more vigilant into this. So that's the impact on technology. I already talked about, I'm going to go to fact checking if we have more time, or I'll do it next week. But there are some sites like factcheck.org that they're actually teaching older people because they can't really figure out what's fake and not fake, and students too. So going to factcheck.org not only will tell you the true things about coronavirus, but it will also tell you about anything. That's like, if, what's the meme about California illegal aliens? So when we're teaching people about fake news and how to know what's true or not, we're going to have to rely on these things. And that's part of the conversation in terms of the falsity of coronavirus. It's funny, if you go onto Instagram and you go hashtag coronavirus or something, there will be a pop-up saying anything that you really want to know, go to this hashtag or go to the CDC or something. So there is this automated thing that the social media platforms are doing. Let's talk about brands for a little bit, because many of you are in the brand industry, the marketing businesses, and we have talked about in the last few months, and since actually last year too, but definitely since Zeitguide 2020, there was a whole chapter about the brand as political leader, or the CEO as political leader. And as our country and the world hasn't really done much to solve or move forward in climate change issues or mental health or gun control, abortion in Georgia, you've had these CEOs and leaders kind of interacting with the consumers saying that, this is horrible, we have to move forward, we believe in this. You have Jamie Dimon, who said that of JP Morgan CEO, that we have to attend to our stakeholders as opposed to our shareholders to give back to citizens, community, etc. And we also saw a shift in that during the Hong Kong protests, where brands were very, like Apple, hesitant to talk about it and support the people from Hong Kong because they didn't want to lose the business in China. So, and then we've seen brands talk about like gay and lesbian issues and inequality and hashtag Me Too. So, but now, like, what are brands supposed to do? I'm getting a lot of phone calls from my brand clients basically saying, do we just not do anything? And what I've observed, and I'm going to go through this quickly, is that the ones that are really doing things, like, they shouldn't talk about, oh, my sympathy with you on social media and blah, 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 like they've been doing. But if they are a brand like Delta or Lyft, right, they are basically, or my yoga studio, which I'm still torn whether I should do hot yoga and be around all these sweaty people. My doctor says fine, just so you know, but I still am hesitant to do it, is that they are sending out emails, putting on their websites, putting in social media what they are doing for their customers. Like, like Lyft just made a deal with Everyone, which is a product that helps you with health, a hand sanitizer that they're putting in every car. Uber basically said that they're not going to allow people to drive if they do have some kind of been around, or they know somebody that they've been around who's had the novel coronavirus. But I feel that the way that brands could really break through right now, in addition to doing this, is first, don't do what Corona, the beer, did, which was advertise their alcoholic seltzer. I talked about this last week, that says washing aboard or coming aboard or something. I mean, it sucks that their name is Corona, but that's definitely something that illuminated or jump-started the conversation that we should not use this opportunity to sell our products, take advantage, leverage this, because it's inauthentic and people could smell a rat a mile away. So they have to be really careful. But what they really can be doing is really just focusing on their employees and really showing how much empathy they have for them. And then their employees will say, wow, isn't my company amazing? Like Walmart basically just said that we can basically leave work. They're really concerned. And that is going to talk about what a brand is doing in terms of an empathic social cause type of way. It's not about focusing on the customer so much as focusing on who's inside, the employees. It's not so much about the customer experience, it's now about the employee experience. So brands aren't really talking about, this virus on, here's CVS. See, this is what they're doing for consumers. Like, great, this is how they should respond to the virus. So it shouldn't be like the cruise lines that are showing up in commercials during, right after a CNN break about the virus. Then you'll see a cruise and they're showing, free bars, right? I mean, the cruise line, Norwegian, basically said they're still going to do commercials in spite of, what's happening, because they have to. But anyway, that's kind of like in poor taste. And then I seen ads like this, like create work anywhere. So it's like the subtext. They're not saying corona, 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 but they're saying, okay, use us if you're gonna work from home, which I'm on the fence for. I mean, we need to know how to do that, but on the flip side, do we, are they really taking advantage of the coronavirus outbreak? So I would say the other thing that's happening is that consumers are basically taking their voices to really talk about the coronavirus, and there's memes all over. This one's funny to me. Some people aren't shaking hands because of the coronavirus. I'm not shaking hands because everyone is out of paper. I thought this one was funny. If you have 20 seconds to do cocaine in the bathroom, you have 20 seconds to wash your fucking hands. So people are really kind of, here's something where like Britney Spears, you know, you sing her chorus while you're washing your hands, it's 20 seconds. There's a lot of memes about that. There's this one website, washyourlyrics.com, where you put in a song and they'll kind of cut the song to 20 seconds so you could sing that part of the song. This is to Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And you can basically sing that verse while you're washing the hands, and when you're done with it, you know, you finish washing your hands. So that's that. And you have countries all over the world who are singing, you know, wash your hands songs that are spreading all over online. This one was from, I believe this one is from Vietnam. And I'll end with this. That's from Vietnam, but I really like this one from Singapore, which, here we go. No, that one's from Vietnam. Anyway, I'll put in, here we go, this one. So by then you'll be alright. When you touch the door, handle that work, yeah. Wanna dig your nose, cause damn sure, yeah. Right before you, you know, how the rest of the world is responding to this. And the last thing I'll say in a positive way is that, okay, what now? And, you know, it's fucked up that, you know, we only have like 5,000 tests, and we know of it in this country. And when South Korea, right when they had their first outbreak or coronavirus patient, they had like literally 10,000 tests a day. So that's depressing about our country. But we have great scientists, which is going to decode the virus in, you know, a really short time. And this guy from Vanderbilt University says, when we think about the relative danger of this new coronavirus and influenza, coronavirus will be a blip on the horizon in comparison. So let's hope. Love you all. Thanks for joining. 30-minute culture class. Put everything on Slack. Spread the word, because now that we're all working remotely, they could Zoom into culture class. I'd love your help on that. And because I hope I could help you make sense of the world in all different cultural capacities. All right, have a great day.